It's 2 o'clock, so I'll call the commission meeting for Thursday, March 19th to order. I'll lead us in invocation, and I'd like to ask Commissioner Elliott to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. And Father, we just ask that you be with our country as we're going through this pandemic, and just help our leaders as they are issuing different guidelines for us as citizens to obey. And Father, we just pray that you'd be with those who have this virus, and just be with the medical care people and touch them as they have such a big job now. And help us to realize how fragile life is. And we just thank you, Father, for the life you give us to live in this country, in this state, and in this community. And just give us wisdom today as we do the work for the citizens of Glynn County. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, I want to thank the staff for revising the seating arrangements so we can have the distance between the various commissioners and people in the audience. Commissioner Triple Stevens will not be able to make the meeting. He's tied up at the hospital.
Okay.
I'd like to have a motion to excuse him from this meeting.
Motion to excuse Mr. Williams. Stevens.
All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Committee updates. Yesterday we had a facilities committee meeting, and during that meeting we talked about the water meter RFP award, and we'll discuss that in more detail in a few minutes. But basically the facilities committee did approve it to be passed to the full commission today. It's a 5-year program, and Mr. Burrows will discuss it briefly in a few minutes. We also had an update on the 4021 rehab pump station. That was one that staff did. It came in above budget, and so we're reviewing the staff is reviewing the project to see what revisions can be made to get it more reasonable in the budget, because it was substantially over the available funds that we had committed for that. On the SPLOST North Mainland Phase 3 lift stations, they just took bids on that the day before that, yesterday, and those actually came in substantially over bids also, and we only had 3 bidders. The staff is reviewing the qualifications of those bidders, and also we'll be looking at maybe some modifications, and we'll be perhaps rebidding that project, but we'll keep you informed as the status of that. We had a good report on the water pollution control plants. All of them are operating well within permit. The Academy Creek plant is currently at 57% of its capacity. Dunbar Creek is at 75% of its capacity, and the South Porch at 28% of its capacity. We did haul away a whole lot more sludge this past month, and that's to get the plant ready to do some test runs on pilot test on how we can operate the plant to meet the upcoming permit revisions that EPD has notified us about. We had a good update on the projects that we have ongoing at the present time, and I have good news to report that the State Route 99 water main project will be completed in about a month. It's been an ongoing project for a long time because of easements and a lot of other factors. The North Mainland sewer improvements for the rehab, that is finished with the exception of a couple of rehab manholes that the contractor still has to do. I talked about the bids on the pump station. The bids are out now for the force main. Those will be taken probably before our next meeting, and we'll see how those bids come in at that time. There are some alternates included in that bid so we can adjust it if necessary. The FEMA hazard mitigation grant that we've received, we'll be taking bids on those transfer switches in the near future. Magnolia Water Improvements, we got good news from the contractor, and we're waiting on the city of Brunswick and the contractor to work out the details. I think it's going to work out within both the city's budget and our budget to proceed with that project and get started pretty soon. L Street is on its, I think, second phase, and we're on the second and third phase are much shorter than the first phase, and hopefully it's going to proceed quicker than the first phase. On CPOM, CIPP, we've had a public meeting with the residents there, and the contractor is getting ready to start that work in the near future. And the Academy Creek roof repair, the work is scheduled to get started on that. We'll be upgrading some CPOM's water lines in the very near future, and some of our unsolicited proposals are moving ahead, so we should be seeing something from the engineer that's working with that and developers in the near future. That's my report. Commissioner Duncan, we had a finance committee meeting yesterday. Can you give a report?
I can. Thank you, Chairman. A few items noteworthy I'll mention is the Finance Committee did approve recommendation to forward to the full commission for the water meter RFP, and we'll review that again here. Likewise, the committee approved the fiscal year 2021 budget recommendation, which will come to the full commission today for review. As a part of that, there were some alignment with goals, and I won't take any thunder away from our executive on that because the full commission will see that today. And then the final item basically was the financial statement. We're very much on track and within the glide path, as I like to refer to it, for our budget versus expenses and revenues. So very brief, short meeting, on track, and very good condition for the utility.
Any questions of any of the committee chairmen? We'll proceed to the approval section of the meeting. Number one is minutes from the March 5th, 2020 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I so move.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We had an executive session, and you have in loose form the minutes from the March 5th, 2020 executive session.
I so move to accept the minutes of the executive session.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Next item is water meter RFP award. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. We have been going through a very detailed and thorough process to determine where we would like to go with our water metering for both residential and commercial customers. We've been interviewing multiple firms for their AMI water features that they can provide us. That is a radio feed that we do not have to actually drive by to read those meters. We can read them from a click of a button. The meters we requested for residential meters to have mechanical registers rather than digital registers for that way the customer can be assured where their reading is coming from as they see the dial spinning. We also requested that they have metal threads and that they have AMR fallback capability. AMR is the current drive-by radio read meters we currently have, and if the network was to go down, we wanted to make sure that we can continue to read meters instead of having to wait 2 or 3 months to bill and then somebody gets a much higher bill because of that. One of the things that we also requested was for the provider to provide and maintain the network system for us. That is not something that we are skilled in, and that's a very specialized field at this time, so we are requesting NAS, Network as a Service, and SAS, which is Software as a Service. Software as a Service is them hosting the data. Per recommendation of Commissioner Cook yesterday, we'll be getting a backup of that data just in case something happens with the existing contract proposal. But we interviewed 6 firms, and the highest scoring firm after that was Delta Municipal Supply, who reps Neptune meters. Neptune meters were previously used by the city of Brunswick over 20 years ago. Neptune is one of the largest meter manufacturers in the United States. They provided a solid plan for the project management. They also were the most cost-effective proposal submitted, and they will be putting the entire network up in year one following a pilot, assuming the pilot goes well. And then we will be replacing meters by route instead of hopscotching around, so different billing routes will be replaced at a time depending on how many current outages are in those routes. One advantage of this new system is we will be able to alert customers to a leak as soon as it is found, rather than them waiting to get a bill that shows that they had a leak. Every morning we can run a leak report, and any meter that has been spinning continuously for 24 hours will be alerted, and we can call those customers and tell them that they have a probable leak they need to investigate. So that will hopefully cut down, one, on some of the confusion when you get a very high water bill because you have a leak, but also allow those leaks to be corrected quicker so that we don't have as much water loss as well. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. So we're replacing the drive-by meters that we use currently?
Yes, sir. All the meters as part of this, if it moves forward, will be replaced.
So what's our timeline about replacing them? How
It's-
are we going to try to replace them?
Right. The first year is a 250-meter pilot just to confirm that the meters are going to be successful, and then it'll be a 4-year rollout. So we'll do about 7,500 meters a year for 4 years.
Have we replaced all our old meters with drive-by now?
Yes, sir.
We have.
Yes, sir. They're all, not all of them, because certainly we've had new customers since then, but the average age of those meters is 15 to 16 years old at this point.
Okay. What's your assessment of saving transportation costs by not having to drive-by?
We currently have 4 meter readers that drive every day, going out and collecting routes, so there will still be some driving that has to be done to do turn-on, turn-offs for customers that are requesting that. We have to periodically locate meters for individuals when they can't find them and need shutting off. So we won't be able to stop all 4 of those trucks, but we can probably cut the transportation cost in half at a very minimum from doing this.
So are we going to train our meter readers too as well with the software? Are there training provided for them?
There will be training provided for them as part of this. We requested 3 full days of training for our staff as part of the proposal, and Delta has agreed to do that, and they will all be trained in this, and the meter readers will have to be trained in a more IT fashion than what they currently are.
Right.
But the meter readers are excited about the opportunity to learn something new.
Thanks.
So right now we have how many meter readers?
We have 4 readers, a data analyst, and then a manager over that group.
4 meter readers.
Yes, sir.
So they won't be reading meters.
They will not be reading meters. If we get to the point after that we get all of these changed out where there's a redundancy in personnel, they will be moved to other needs in the organization to fill some vacant positions we have elsewhere at that time, provided that's something that they want to do. So these individuals will be learning something new, learning some new skills, and potentially moving to other places in the organization, but you're looking at 4 to 5 years down the road before that would occur.
Andrew, tell us how many meters we have that are reading right now.
We're currently over 3,000 meters in the system that have to be manually read each month, and that is increasing by the day. We're losing over 100 meters. When I say meters, registers a month. The meter is still reading, but the register is not transmitting. So we have to go out and manually read that meter.
And the rest of them are radio read meters.
The overwhelming majority of the rest of them are radio read, yes. So we have a handful of cellular meters in our system. That has not been as successful as we had hoped. So that is why we were going for the AMI system via radio read that we're talking about now. And there's also areas of the county that cell signal is not exactly the greatest, so that limits the cellular service we could get there. I did speak with several utility members at a conference a few weeks ago, and all of the large utilities were either using Neptune or census meters, so we would be following a trend and instead of being on the leading edge of a technology as part of this.
And whose meters do we have right now?
We currently have Badger meters. Badger did submit, their submission was a little different. They submitted a proposal where we would essentially pay them to provide all of our meter service options. They would do the maintenance, they would do the turn-ons and the readings and everything like that. but it was not deemed cost-effective. It would be, their ultimate proposal would be $10 per month per meter, so that works out to over $3 million a year for them to provide that service.
The one thing that I mentioned after we heard this is, and Charlie, you might address this, is how can we award something and not have the money set aside for it right now? It's total contracts of $18 million over a 5-year period. And so basically, I think the proposal is to start negotiations for a contract. But we need to be careful with that negotiations on the contract if the proposal is passed today, to make sure that we realize we need to know where the financing is going to come before we proceed, or we have an out with this contract.
Did it average out the cost per year?
It's about $5 million a year.
$4 million a year, roughly. We do have money set aside for the pilot for the 250 meters. That was approved in February at the project plan, so we have the first year's funding secured. And we will be bringing an overview of some financing options to you at the next Finance Committee meeting on this.
I was just concerned that we could award a contract for $18 million when we don't have the money set aside right now.
Well, there is a concern in binding the future commissions, next 4 commissions, to a contract. So we may want to look at whether we can do these as individual contracts every year. And that's just part of the, I mean, the motion today is just for negotiations. So we can evaluate what we need to do.
Well, both the finance and the facilities meeting, those committees approved this, so do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission authorize the executive director to move forward in negotiation with the Delta Municipal Supply Company for AMI and MDMS products and services for a 5-year program integration to serve the meter reading needs of the JWSC.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Andrew. Next item is the fiscal year 2021 budget approval. Mr. Burris.
All right. This was presented yesterday to the Finance Committee, and the Facilities Committee did stay and sit through that. So some of this will be a bit of a refresher, and some of this will be new for a couple of the commissioners. But this is our 2021 organizational budget request. Our fiscal year begins on July 1st. So we had a few goals when we started going through this budgeting process. Our goals were to provide for organization needs while stabilizing rates. We wanted to continue being efficient with the use of capital, and we wanted to decrease our O&M costs while also allowing for an enhanced customer experience and with our resource management. So some highlights of the budget that we had. We are not requesting a rate increase as part of this budget. We are reducing our staffing request as part of this, and we will be decreasing the bad debt expense. We've had a consistent turn on and turn off program now for a couple of years, and the bad debt expenses have decreased to the point where we feel comfortable decreasing that budget. And we're also going to increase the funding to our repair and replacement reserve, which is where we do projects out of. And more projects we can do, the quicker we can get through our system. So overall, our projected revenues, 42% would be coming from sewer revenues, 20% from water revenues, and another third coming from debt and admin fees that are charged on each bill, with a small amount coming from other areas. The 2% interest income, that's a significant increase over what we were getting in the past. We've been investing our reserves more aggressively for the past year, so that 2% of interest income is reflected in our projected revenues. And then the other income is where all of the service fees, the application fees for starting up an account, any operational tap fees, not the actual capital portion, but the operational portion of that is where all goes into the other income category. So on the revenues, we increased our leak adjustment allowance. That is actually a deduct on the sewer revenues following some ordinance revisions we just completed. That will open up more people for leak adjustments. One of the main areas that occurred was with our customers that had an existing balance. Previously, they could not qualify for a leak adjustment, but we got that approved from the city and the county recently, and we have already done more than $50,000 in leak adjustments for customers that were previously unable to do so. And one other thing we did as part of that was to allow for a one-time sod irrigation adjustment. When you put new sod down, you can come in and get a leak adjustment if you don't have an irrigation account to make sure your investment in sod is not wasted. We increased our interest income like I stated earlier. We feel like that is something that we can count on. Hopefully the market turns around very quickly, but we were somewhat conservative with that. And then we decreased our other income, that category that's kind of a catch-all for all the non-typical revenues, and that's to facilitate a reduction in the operational charges for new connections. What we would request to do, and we would do this through the rate resolution at a later date, would be to take the labor and equipment charges out of those new connection fees. Those are all budgeted as part of our normal water and sewer revenues, and so that will actually reduce the cost to come onto a new connection by over $1,000 per connection if we were able to do that. So this is a snapshot of our expenses by type. 35% of our budget does go to personnel expenses. 31% goes to operating expenses, but a large chunk, 21% of that goes to reserve transfers, which is where we do our projects from, and that has been increasing over the past few years to allow us to be more effective with the way we spend our capital dollars. So on our expenses, I mentioned earlier that there was a requested reduction in staffing. We would be cutting 5 positions, and the way we would do that was from consolidating our facilities maintenance group. We'll be outsourcing the landscaping portion of that, as well as some of the handyman type work that goes on, and those individuals will be reallocated to currently vacant positions in other operating groups. The budget includes a 1.66% cost of living adjustment for all employees going into effect July 1st. We allowed an additional 10% in pension payments on the current pension to further decrease our unfunded liability, and any pension adjustments that we make in the next few months will actually, that 10% will increase if our cost as a commission decreases from those changes. The operating expenses did increase slightly, but that was solely from the banking and investment fees. We recently changed the way we were doing our investments, and we just redid our banking contract, but there are revenue offsets that more than cover those fees, so the only increase in those operating expenses was from banking and investment fees. And with closing down the facilities maintenance group, we'll be able to reduce our capital because we'll reallocate those rolling stock that they had. They had 5 trucks that are all in great shape, and we'll be able to replace some of our older vehicles in other divisions by moving those to those divisions. So this is a look at last year's, or this current year, projected expenses for division percentage. You can see that over half of our expenses go to systems pumping and maintaining and wastewater treatment. That are the group that maintains our sewer systems. And then the water accounts for about 15% of our budget, and the rest would be more administrative functions. You'll see that 3% of our budget, or about $625,000, was allocated to facilities maintenance in the current budget. In next year's budget, it looks very much the same minus the facilities maintenance slice on there. 51% still going to sewer, and still 15% going to the water functions as we move forward. So there were a few divisions that did increase, and here are some explanations of that. We did consolidate facilities maintenance, which did not increase facilities maintenance, but we had to relocate a landscaping contract charge to our purchasing group. And the utilities for this building were being charged to facilities maintenance group, and those have been reallocated to finance. The billing charges were moved to finance. Last year, we moved some employees from the administration division over to finance for the billing purposes. We did not move the budget for where we pay for the billing, printing and billing services out of last year, so we're moving that this year. And then the banking and investment fees did increase, which impacted our finance budget. The wastewater treatment budget was increased slightly to allow for improved maintenance there. They had some increased capital cost requests, replacing some pumps, and also they had some requests to increase our, it's titled Purchased Equipment Repairs, which is where we repair pumps and gearboxes and other large equipment out of. They had some needs for increasing that, and we were able to do that for them. So decreases, we did consolidate facilities maintenance, which certainly decreased that budget. And then that rolling stock again was reallocated. The 2020 project plan that was approved in February allowed us to decrease 2 significant line items in our budget from last year. One of those was water meter replacements. Now that we're moving forward with a water meter changeout program, we don't have to maintain as much of a budget for replacing those as part of the operating budget. And one of the main project on the capital plan that was approved was a large SCADA changeout. So we are reducing the SCADA maintenance cost by over $100,000 this year by replacing those assets. And then at the beginning of last year, we bid out a manhole rehab contract with over 50 manholes on it. Previously, we had been going manhole by manhole and getting quotes for that, and that allowed us to save over $250,000. So that was taken into account in this budget. If you recall, in last budget, we reduced the sludge hauling cost, and that we were able to continue that. So that is a carryover from the year before. And there's just an interesting expense history we have here. The blue is the debt service cost. The red is the transfers to the R&R reserve, and green are the operating expenses. Now you see a slight dip 3 years ago. However, the main cause, or the only cause of that, was because of the decreased debt service as we redid the bonds of that year. The actual green piece really hasn't changed a whole lot over the last 3 to 4 years, but the one thing that has changed is the red portion as we have increased our R&R transfer. 5 years ago, we were transferring $3.5 million into our project fund. In this proposed budget, we're transferring $6.8 million into that project fund. We can fix more of our system with capital projects dollar for dollar than we can with operating expenses, so being able to allocate more funds to projects has been beneficial and will continue to pay dividends. So going back to those goals we discussed early on, we wanted to provide for organizational needs while stabilizing rates. So we were able to do that by not increasing rates for next fiscal year, which is the second consecutive year we've been able to hold rates steady. We want to continue to be efficient with our use of capital. We did that by increasing our R&R transfer, and then we were able to reduce the capital rolling stock request by reallocating those facilities maintenance vehicles. We wanted to drive down the operations and maintenance costs. We saw significant reductions in manhole rehab and sludge disposal costs over the past 12 months. And then the landscaping contract to be outsourced. We expect the contract to be slightly more expensive than it was the last time we bid that out, but that was a $135,000 contract a few years ago. So if the existing facilities budget was over $600,000, there's substantial savings there. And we want to further enhance our customer experience and resource management. So the AMI meter trial we just discussed will begin over the summer, with hopefully full implementation taking place in the third quarter of FY21, which would be January through March when that would be getting started. That will allow our customers to get hourly readings on their meters if they so choose, and we can give them that information similar to the way the power company does right now. And then we'll be able to get a full year of investment income realized this year due to the changes we've made. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Question. There's landscaping equipment and other equipment items that was associated with the division that you're just establishing. Is that going to be sold to the government website, or we have other use for that?
Most of the smaller equipment will be reallocated to other groups. Chainsaws, things of that nature come in quite handy when we have a hurricane situation on our hands, so those will be kept. The actual zero-turn mowers that we're using likely will be surplused and sold on gov deals. So there will be some revenue increase there, very small compared to our overall budget, but there will be some revenue gain there.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion about our proposed budget. Regarding the budget for next year, it's $33,407,000. I move that the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve the submission of the proposed fiscal year 2021 JWSC budget to the City of Brunswick and Glynn County for their review and comment and approval of the fiscal year JWSC budget in the amount of $33,407,000, subject to revision upon receipt of comments received from the City of Brunswick and/or Glynn County.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yes, sir, I got one. In this budget, do we have any significant increase in any department? You may have said that in your.
There were a few increases. Like I said, the purchasing group increased because we moved that landscaping contract. And another thing that we moved into, the request that we were able to grant was for barcoding equipment for our warehouse to streamline some of our warehousing functions. So that was a capital request.
Asset management type?
Yes, yes, sir.
Get
That will.
straightened out?
Yes, sir. So that will allow us to, when someone comes in with a request, we scan the barcode, it immediately gets uploaded to our asset management system, and will help with both our ordering and our tracking of where those parts are going. The one that we're requesting to buy is the recommended one by our asset management software program, CityWorks, so there is already an API built for that. The other thing that saw significant increase would be the finance budget with the moving of the billing and mailing of the bills. That's about a $200,000 a year charge that was moved over. That didn't necessarily change from last year's budget very much. It just got moved to a different division, and then the banking and investment fees were a couple hundred, $400,000 combined. That was not realized in last year's budget, but as we've made changes, they will be here. But our revenues have increased more than that amount, so it's a net positive for us.
Okay. Also, I wasn't here when you had the, I apologize not being for the finance committee, being here. Did we ever figure out our increase in revenue, our, what we're gonna, I'm trying to say, give our employees a raise? Did we figure out how we're gonna do that?
We've got a 1.66% COLA in here. The way we typically budget personnel cost is a COLA plus one step as in assumed in there, although not all of our employees will get one step on top of the COLA. That's based off of their performance review at the end of the year. So all employees would get the 1.66%.
Okay.
On July 1st.
So this does not include any kind of increase other than COLA?
No, sir. It has the potential for two steps for all employees. We budget for one step because most employees will not get two steps. Some employees won't get any, some will get two, most will end up in the one range.
Commissioner Harvey, on page 8, do you see, he's got the different
Yes,
departments broken down?
I see it.
My question on this too, though, did each department have a contingency included too?
No, sir.
So what happens if they overrun?
If they overrun one line item, they've got to figure out where they can get it out of another line item. We have monthly budget meetings with them where they have to go through all of that. Sometimes there's explanations that we understand, and sometimes it's just not being as careful as we need to be. But every department has a overall budget number they're expected to maintain. And if we do have a random occurrence where somebody goes over in a particular line item, they have to take it out of one of their other line items. There are some line items that are more discretionary than others, and those line items are usually where that would come from.
So you're comfortable with the number?
Yes, sir, I'm very comfortable with the number.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, my previous experience on a utility commission was with much larger utility. We had 170,000 customers. And I want to tell you, with my new set of eyes here, I'm very impressed with the way this utility is operating and with the staff, the preparation, the way they approach things, the proactive approach with the customer in mind. And I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that it's very refreshing and very positive, and I want everyone to know that we do appreciate your efforts.
Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah, it is good. You're right. Yes, sir.
I will say I would like to give thanks to our budget team, Mr. Donaghy and Ms. Roberts, and also our senior accountant, Ms. Frances Wilson. They spent countless hours over the last 6 weeks trying to get to a number that I was comfortable with. So they did the yeoman's work on this to make sure this came together. So I want to give a thank you to them for that.
And just a highlight to offer here too, compared to the 2020 fiscal year, the 2021 budget is, round numbers, is about $300K over the last year. So it's essentially flat. That's in operating expense portion. So in my view, that's really quite good considering $22 million budget that you can be able to hold it flat in the next year. So we're very much on track, and a lot of it's a credit, obviously, to our team is being excellent stewards of the funds that we're able to collect from our customers and generating efficiencies, which promotes more operating flexibility throughout the year.
And we will,
Burroughs, where is, how much do we have in that account for helping people who have a big a bill or something like that?
I'm going to refer that to the finance group. They tend to keep track of those numbers.
How's that working?
At this point, we've referred 17 customers to the customer assistance program, and that's the extent of the funds that we had available.
Okay.
We are,
So we have funds for 17 people, that's what you
Yes,
said?
sir.
Okay.
we are actively discussing with all of our customers that we would like for them to round up if they can to donate to that. We also take single donations, or you can put a flat rate on your bill. And we also have got something, if you've been to the movie theater here by the mall, sometimes you'll get a brief message where you can text in donating from there, and that has actually been reasonably successful.
Really?
The GFA loan, the payment on that, we're not assuming we're going to have a payment this next year, is that correct?
No, sir, we are assuming we're going to have a payment. That's going to be taken out of our R&R reserve. That was part of the capital plan that was presented. In all likelihood, the payment will be less than what we budgeted for because you only pay for the amount that you have drawn down the loan. And we will be bidding out the work at the wastewater plant this summer, but we certainly will not have it completed by the end of the fiscal year, so we will not be paying all of that debt service this year, but we wanted to make sure we were conservative.
I don't want to talk about it.
Any other questions concerning the budget?
May I add one more thing? I sure hope we hire an executive director before we burn this gentleman out who's working so well and doing such hard work. Hopefully soon.
We will hopefully be interviewing for our deputy director position we were planning to do it by the end of the month, but that may need to be shifted given the current climate. So we're working through those processes now.
Please, we need you.
Hearing no other questions, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Now we have the executive director's update. Andrew, and could you give us an update on what we're doing so far as the virus within the?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. As staff, we are limiting as many in-person meetings as we can. We're trying to do them all either via telephone or WebEx. Working through some of the immediate shortcomings of a WebEx takes some time, and we're uploading some of that software that's available online for free. It's not costing us anything to do this, but we're working through those processes now. We've gotten, I would say, exponentially better as the week has gone on about holding those WebExes. We are also, if you've been in our lobby, you will notice that all of our cashiers are wearing gloves. Anybody that's touching money is wearing gloves at this point. We did have a provider come in and do what's called hydrostatic disinfection of our facility here, knowing that the lobby is our highest risk area. So they came in on Monday night and did that in this building. They basically disinfected everything that was 8 feet or below in this building. Now, certainly, as people come in that may have the virus at that time, that does not protect us from transmission at that point, but anything that was existing should have been killed at that point. Very cost effective in doing that. We've stopped all congregating in the break room at lunches, so we're trying to space our lunches out, and we've stopped all of the community coffee pots because of the constant touching of a coffee pot there. And the other thing we've done, we put this news out yesterday, is we've suspended cutoffs and late fees for our customers, knowing that there's a potential economic situation for a lot of these individuals. We are going to suspend those hopefully right now for 30 days, so hopefully it won't be as long, but if we have to extend that, we will. So if those customers that may be missing work right now, certainly we are trying to keep you in mind through this. And then if it goes on for an extended period to where you can't make those payments back in the month you finally get back working, we'll work out a payment plan with you at that point, with, like we're doing now, with no late fees on the payment plan, so you can get that paid off.
Anything else?
The only other thing,
If I could interrupt you there, what are we doing to communicate with the public, the things that we're doing as the JWSC? We're talking about that on the county level, but just public service announcement, maybe other areas that you could think of that we could
we're posting some things
have a
to,
positive message.
we're posting some things to our webpage and also to our social media accounts. We've posted some things on making sure you don't flush things you're not supposed to, the information about the cutoff procedures, and also somewhat dispelling a rumor that got started that the water was not safe to drink because of coronavirus. I assure everyone that the water is safe to drink, and if you need further clarification, the EPA also said the same thing. So apparently that is a widespread rumor, and that should not be a concern during this time. We're also on several of our email accounts. If you're getting emails from us, there's a disclaimer that says what our practices will be as far as limiting in-person meetings as best as we can from vendors and canceling all our non-essential travel, things of that nature, just to get the word out, because the majority of the way we communicate with the outside world is via email. Certainly we have customers that come in the lobby, but we do email a lot of our vendors and things of that nature, so we've got that disclaimer on there as well.
Is there anything in the local newspapers that were put out?
We haven't done that yet, but we can certainly look into that. We also send all the stuff we are requesting to get put out through Glynn County. Matthew Kent does a great job putting things out, and anybody that may not be following our social media accounts may be following Glynn County, so we're trying to make sure we're passing that along to multiple groups.
And what about you or Jay, perhaps, talking to the radio program?
We can certainly call and see what they would like to do on that. In the past, they've been very receptive.
As a caller.
Yes, sir.
Or you could, or give him a heads up that
Sure.
you're going to call at a certain time, and just, I think it's reassuring to the public to hear from its leadership that we're being proactive and responsive.
Yes, sir. We're trying to be as proactive as possible. Some of the things that you do, you don't realize, the whole touching of your face. I don't know about y'all, but I've realized I touch my face way more than I thought I did once I was not supposed to do that anymore. So certainly we're trying to work on that as best as we can. And on that note about being proactive, this is for anyone that happens to be watching us right now on our live stream. This is a reminder that toilets are not trash cans. We are having problems already for people flushing non-flushable products. A flushable wipe is not flushable, despite what it says on the package. It will not break down in a sewer system, and it clogs up either your lateral or our lines eventually. The only thing that should go down other than your waste is toilet paper. Anything other than that does not need to be flushed. We've had several call-ins on that. Some of them, unfortunately, have been private issues stuck in their lateral. We've also had pumps clogged up at pump stations from this material. The Chamber of Commerce breakfast that we discussed at the last meeting has been canceled. Just want to remind everyone of that, and then everyone just stay safe and follow the guidelines that we've been having, and JWSC, we will continue to provide service for the duration of this. We know we are critical to public health, and we're going to be here. So,
Thank you, Andrew. You have before you the proposed 2020 Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission calendar starting through April. And I want to make a motion that for the months of April and May that we only have one meeting those 2 months, and that they be on the third Thursday, and the committee meetings will be set by the individual committee members. This is 2 reasons. Number one, our commission meetings are getting shorter because our committees are doing such a good job, and we have a good executive director, and also we have this virus, and we need to minimize our meetings, our public meetings, if at all possible. So I made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, Janice will send out a revised commission calendar to everyone. Thank you very much. And that's the only update I have. I do want to thank staff for providing the spacing that we have here, and I also want to thank Chuck Cook for joining our commission. I think he's going to be a great asset for us this year, and he's got some knowledge, and he
Thank you.
came to the committee meetings yesterday and everything, so that's good news. We do need to have executive session, and I think this is about property.
Chairman, can I make an announcement, if you don't mind? I want to make an announcement that the city of Brunswick, we did select a new city manager last night. And the individual is a young lady out of Macon County, Georgia. Her name is Regina McDuffie. And she probably report May 4th, somewhere around there. Extensive knowledge of city management. And we're looking forward to that, so just be aware of that.
We look forward to working with him.
Fantastic.
Any other commissioners have anything?
I recommend that the people that are gonna be in the executive session are the ones right here, and that we hold the executive session in here and have the mics and everything turned off instead of going into the enclosed space.
Sounds good to me.
Second.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We have a motion and second to go into executive session.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. We'll adjourn.
Oh, that's probably not a
Okay.
We're good now.
Hold on, okay.
I move to adjourn. We
We
got to
have
vote
we
on
have to
the.
vote.
We have to
Oh,
vote,
that's
we got to vote on this, yeah.
Are we live yet?
And in section
We are.
5, there's the motion, if you'd like to make that.
I'll make that motion. I move that the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve Amendment Number 1 to the purchase and sale agreement entered into with Port City Partners LLC with a binding agreement date of February 12, 2020, and the grant authority to the chairman to assign the amendment.
Okay, second.
Second, all in favor, and the motion carries 6-0. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay.